Hi, Vampyresskiss.
And Angel.
And what I'm going to talk about today doesn't really have much to do. It has some indirect to do with Angel. So he's not going to sit here because he doesn't want to listen to it.
Well, I'll probably come in.
Oh, you'll probably come in. Okay.
Yeah.
You'll probably have to come in when David knocks at the door, because we've locked the front door so he can't just walk in and make a bunch of noise.
Okay.
Anyway, I wanted to do this for myself. At one time, I used to have all this written down someplace, but it was when I lived in Oregon I did it, and I don't know exactly what could have happened to my notes or anything, because they were long gone before we ever left Oregon. So I'm going to tell this event in my life the best I can. I do have problems with sequence, like what came before what. I always have. I don't know why. So I may get confused, and I may end up having to go back and tell more. But like I said, I'll try to do the best I can. But that does not mean I'm not telling the truth, or that I'm trying to make things worse or better than they were. I'm going to just tell it just like I remember it. In 1984, I was married at the time to, we were both kids. I was 23, and he had just turned 24. So we were kids, and we had a kid of our own, Jamie. She was 3. That was cute. And it was about maybe April. It could have been even as early as March that this started. Anyway, Billy, that's the ex-husband's name, and nothing against him. He went through a lot with me, and he to his credit, he stuck through that part, which is not, you can't say that about every guy. Anyway, I went to the doctor a lot because I was I was a hypochondriac. My mother basically made me a hypochondriac because I was a change of life baby, and she had this paranoia that if I got sick I would die, I guess. I didn't know about that until after she had passed away, but that was what my brother had told me. And so basically every time I got a sniffle or anything, she had me to the doctor. Well, that carried through into my adult life too. Anyway, I had come down with it could have been bronchitis, or it could have been just a lung infection. I'm not sure exactly what it was, because what does that mean? Angel's doing this to me. Shh, shh. What, is there a ninja coming?
No,
it's a train.
Nope, it's not just a train.
Okay, well, you tell me what it is. I lost my train of thought. Where was I? Okay, because I didn't go to the doctor, I'm not sure exactly what it was I had. But I was damned and determined to prove him wrong, that I didn't need to go to the doctor, and that I could heal myself and make myself well. Well, March, April, I'd say May, I just kept getting sicker. And I can remember coughing a lot, and just being basically, it was mostly right here in the chest, whatever was wrong with me. And I had this other thing going on towards the end, before we went to the emergency room, where my head was like a really thick fog. I can't explain it better than that. It was like I knew I was there, but yet it was kind of like I really didn't think I was there. I don't know how to explain it. It was kind of like when I smoked dope a few times, and it was like I was in a strobe light, except this was like the strobe light was always in the part where I couldn't see. I don't know. God, that probably made no sense at all. But anyway, and I went through that for a while, where everything was just like a fog. And I don't remember why. There was one night, I think it was Jamie and I'm pretty sure, because I usually took her with me, stayed at my mom's. I don't know why we stayed the night there. I can't remember. Anyway, woke up, and that morning I was I don't know why I didn't have my car either, because I remember Billy coming and getting us. And my mother had a one-step porch. And I remember walking off this, well, actually, no. This is another one of those instances where I've got to back up. The night before, I can remember we were sitting in her front yard. So it was like May, sometime in May, the weather was nicer. And we were sitting in my mom and dad's front yard. And my feet were asleep. And that sleepy feeling was going up my legs and actually was in my hands too. And it was coming up my arms. And it was like, I was falling asleep from the bottom and this way. And I didn't know why. It kind of scared me, made me nervous because I was panicky anyway. And the next morning when I got out of bed, I don't remember anything until I went to go outside and I was stepping off the porch, and one of my feet didn't want to come with me. I think it was my right foot. Well, it did end up coming with me because the whole momentum of moving down towards the ground. I mean, I didn't fall, but it did come with me. But for some reason, it was like when I walked, that foot didn't want to come. And I still was like asleep in my feet, asleep in my hands, and I felt like I was inside a fishbowl. I had like bubble vision. And I couldn't swallow right because I got something stuck in my throat. And I don't know why, for some silly, stupid reason, I thought I needed a chiropractic adjustment. I thought, well, maybe it's just a nerve or something. So we went to a chiropractor, and of course he says, yeah, you just need an adjustment. So he gives me an adjustment. And it wasn't getting better. And being inside a car with that bubble vision going on just made it even worse. And I can't remember why. Oh, I do remember why. It was actually Sunday, and I said to Billy, there's no way I can take care of Jamie on Monday. Take me to the emergency room and let's see what they can do. We went to the emergency room, and they didn't know what was wrong with me either. And they only kept me overnight because of what I said. I said, I can't take care of this child of mine because I don't know what's going on. I can't even hang on to things. I can't even hardly walk. And so they admitted me into the hospital, and I don't remember. This was at Providence Hospital in Portland, Oregon. And Monday morning, because that was a Sunday, Monday, they, I don't remember. I was just like, I was out of the bed. I don't know, they came in and they were talking to me, and I went to stand up, and my feet just came out from underneath me. And from that point and until almost a year later, it took me to walk again. But they called in a specialist. He was a neurologist. His name was Richard Rosenbaum. God bless Richard Rosenbaum. Oh my God, this man is a saint in my opinion. I couldn't have asked for a better neurologist. Well, right away he knew what was wrong with me, but he didn't say anything. He just ordered a spinal tap. And then after the results came back from the spinal tap, I'm pretty sure that Billy had been there when we got the results. He told me that I had Guillain-Barré Syndrome. Nowadays they don't call it that whole name, they just call it GBS. Anyway, there wasn't, even though Guillain-Barré has been around a long time, there wasn't a whole lot really known or a whole lot of treatments for it. And I barely remember him just sitting down and telling me that it could get really bad, that I could never walk again, and that I'd probably end up on a ventilator, and the prognosis was bad. Although he never used the word, you could die in that sentence. That was, huh?
They're not supposed to.
Yeah, well, they're not supposed to. So that was never said. Anyway, so they admitted, I was already admitted into the hospital, but they sent me to a different wing or ward, or I'm going to have a drink. a different area, which I cannot remember exactly where it was. Yes, I haven't been drinking long. Anyway, he had told us that normally with Guillain-Barré, I'm going to call it that because that's what I've always called it, because that is what it was addressed to, as to me. Usually it peaks out within 2 weeks. Well, in this 2-week period of time, I was, of course, getting worse. Pretty soon I couldn't close my eyes anymore. Pretty soon I couldn't move my hands. They would have to give me a special call button that would go right in the palm of my hand. Pretty soon I couldn't breathe anymore, because actually I don't think that the breathing went quite as fast as what they thought, but because my mouth muscles and everything had already gone, I couldn't put my mouth around that thing to do the breathing test. And so it showed that my breathing was bad, and they put me on a vent. First they stuck it through my nose and down into my throat, and then they did the surgery the next day and put it right here in my throat. And then at that point they put me in ICU. And while I was in ICU, I was at basically zero as far as muscle tone goes, because what Guillain-Barré does, I don't think it's a virus, because they called it a syndrome. So it does something to the myelin coating over the top of your nerves. It like eats it away. And when that myelin coating that's on the top of your nerves is gone, you become paralyzed. You can't feel like you should. And one thing I should say is, this whole time my body just kept falling asleep. It kept going up, 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 up. I don't remember my face ever feeling like it was asleep. And it seems like the worst it ever got, it would sometimes come up into my chest right about here, which I don't know if anybody's ever felt anything like that. Okay. It's an awful feeling to feel like your chest is asleep like that. And I'm sorry. Okay, I can do this. Not there anymore. Okay, I've got this. Okay, anyway, I don't really remember where I was. I'm just going to go from this point. 2 weeks came and went. I wasn't getting any better. It just kept getting worse and worse. And I got to the point where I was at zero muscle tone. I could not any longer move anything, except for maybe my head would move sometimes side to side. Not very often. And I did not know this until afterwards. They said about the only muscle that was left to go was my heart. And so I was damn lucky. Anyway, the Dr. Rosenbaum, wanted to try, at the time this was experimental, it was called plasmapheresis. And what that is where they take your plasma out by spinning it, which I'm sure lots of people know what that is, because a lot of people sell their plasma. And they replace it with not, just one person's plasma, but they replace it with like lots of people's plasma. And he wanted to try that on me to see if he could get things to turn around. Well, my insurance company wouldn't pay for it. And Billy and I were like, we were, a young married couple, even though he had a really good job. I didn't work. And so we didn't have the money, and we couldn't do this. So my doctor, God bless his soul, actually wrote a paper that went in a medical journal. It's somewhere out in this world, I don't know where, and it's about me, and somehow got the funding, and he was able to get me the plasmapheresis. And God, I'm trying to think, how did they hook it up first? I think it was just like an IV, and then they were trying to. Oh no, I remember. It was I don't know if they called this the venous line or this was the venous line. That's right. They tried to do it right here in my chest. I have a tiny little scar right here. Well, it didn't work because I was born with some sort of a bone birth defect in here that they couldn't get the needle in far enough, and it wouldn't work. So the first attempt was no good, and so they called in another doctor who actually I don't know if you can still see it because the scar looks way better. I used to have a really bad scar, but I have a scar that goes right here, and I have a scar that goes right here, and they actually like sewed the lines into me so that they could do the plasmapheresis. And I'm thinking that this was actually the venous line. I can't remember. Excuse me. If somebody can remember, comment below and tell me, because as time goes on you get foggy anyway. And even the second attempt did not work right because something happened where I passed out during it, and they couldn't proceed. So number 2 failed too. I know, it was just like there was like a multitude of things that were just like totally against me. Because I'm a Nugent, yeah. I don't know what it was. Anyway, finally, the third time, because I think they ended up having to do it 3 times altogether, because they just could not get it to turn around for me. It just was like, I hadn't even plateaued. I still was getting worse. And at this point, they were shooting just to get me plateaued. And they, the third time finally worked, and, nothing was getting better, and I don't really remember. I just remember being in the ICU. I was in a room by myself because I was in there for over a month, and I remember laying there, and I had it. I mean, I was at the end of my rope. I mean, I'm not kidding. I was praying. I mean, I'm not usually a God-fearing person, but I was praying and I was begging God to take me. I just wanted to be dead. I wanted out and dead because I was in so much pain and things were so bad. I didn't want to do it no more. And there's actually another part to that particular thing that happened, but I'm not going to tell that part in this particular story. This is just about the Guillain-Barré. And I kid you not, the next day, it flipped that fast. And it didn't flip to where I was like walking or anything, but they could see that something had happened, and they could see some improvement. Anyway, I guess it was about another week or so I had to stay in the ICU, and then they finally took me into I don't remember if it was just a regular room for another week or so until there was a place open in rehab. But in the end, I was in the hospital for almost 4 months, and about a month of that was in rehab, which was really hard. If any of you have ever been at 0 muscle tone and you have to start from that point, it's really hard. And I wasn't even walking when I left. I couldn't even hardly transfer out of my wheelchair. But they finally decided that I should come home. Anyway, Billy couldn't get the time off work to take care of me, and they told me I couldn't be home alone. And, my mom was pretty good through the whole thing while I was in the hospital. Came to see me every day, and she was taking care of Jamie, too, at the time. At night, or not at night, but on the weekends and stuff, Billy would go get her and take care of her. But, she was right there. She was my champion, My dad came and seen me every single day, too. But when I got out of the hospital and they let me come home, my mother had said she would watch me for 2 weeks. Well, I guess it was about maybe 4 days, 5 days. And all of a sudden, she just, and I wasn't even being difficult. I mean, I simply just was in the wheelchair, and, you know, I was trying to do what I could because I wanted to get better. Do you think I wanted to live my life like that? No, I didn't. I wanted to be better. And, like, the fourth day, she just says, I can't take this anymore. And she walked away and left me there. I mean, Billy wasn't even home yet. I couldn't even dial the phone.
It just makes sense at all.
Seriously?
Yeah, my
Not
grandma
to-
was kind of a
She
butthead.
left you?
She left me. She was,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll never forgive her as long as I
If
live
you
for
think
doing
your
that.
grandma's a butthead, mine was a big butthead.
Yeah, she was a butthead. When
She
she
was
was
a
done with you, she was done with
That
you.
was it.
Because this was her opinion. Because we had talked about this later. She said, you had been in the hospital for almost 4.5 months. I just thought you should be well. And I was through. So I thought, my work here is done. You carry on. So that was her philosophy in that. Okay, so here I am. She's gone. My nose is still running. She's gone. And Billy wasn't going to be home for a few more hours. And so who do I look to? My 3-year-old. I kid you not. She was only 3 years old at the time. yeah. And let me tell you, I've had 2 3-year-olds, well, kind of like 3, but 2 definitely that were my own children. And I can say that she was above and beyond any child you could have ever asked for. This kid at 3 years old was able to walk outside, and I mean, and get the mail. Now I know that sounds like nothing, but it was not nothing, because you had to actually walk outside our gate, you had to walk down to the street, and you had to actually walk all the way across the front of our property and get the mail on the opposite corner of the house. So it was a long ways around. And I would call the neighbor before she went out there, and I would ask the neighbor, because I couldn't see her. So I'd ask the neighbor, will you watch Jamie while she gets the mail? And Shirley, that's her name. She's gone now, but that was her name, Shirley. So Shirley would watch Jamie as she went and got the mail. And Jamie couldn't lift me or anything, obviously, because even though I had lost a tremendous amount of muscle mass and everything, but she could bring me the phone. She could bring me something to drink. She could bring me my clothes. She could help me. Don't cry. Don't make me cry.
Oh, God, you're babies.
No, it was a very traumatic thing we went through. We're not babies. Anyway, it was, I feel so bad that I had to put her through that, because she lost her childhood, because all of a sudden the roles reversed. This little 3-year-old was like my mother.
I'm leaving.
Okay, you leave.
I'll probably
And-
come back later.
I was like her child. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. That's exactly how it ended up happening. And I'm telling you, this kid, you couldn't have asked. I know I've said that already, but you couldn't have asked for a better kid. And it was like 3-4 days later, her dad finally was able to get some time off, and he took like a week off or something. And when I did start getting better, I got something in my eye too. I got better pretty fast, but I wasn't walking yet. But pretty soon I was in a walker, and my dad made me a rail for in the hallway, because we had a pretty long hallway, and I used that to practice to walk with. I'm sorry, my eyes are going to water worse than they should because I got something in my eye now. Anyway, but she was there. She was there through the whole thing. She never left my side. She, most 3-year-olds, I don't even really know a typical 3-year-old, because even Casey at 3 was a weird kid that way. No, not so much that way, but he was just like weird, as in he was Angel. Will you get us some tissue? My nose is running. Can you get my tissue off my desk for us, please? Anyway, so I don't even really know. Because I don't think Angel was a typical 3-year-old either, because he was so far in the other direction. It was just, so I don't know a typical 3-year-old. But Jamie never wavered. She knew she was responsible to do these things, and she did them. And, you know, if it hadn't been for her, honest to God, I wouldn't be here to be able to even tell this story. I really wouldn't. Because like I said, Billy got like a week off, and it was her and I, definitely, in that whole next year. Because she continued to get the mail, and she continued to do everything while I continued to try to heal myself and make myself better. And, you know, I belong to quite a few GBS sites now. And, you know, I read people's stories and what they go through. And, you know, it doesn't even really sound like the same disease. Because I read where people have had it 2-3 times. And I had, by the grace of the goddess, I've only had it once. I have a lot of residual from it. I have my feet drag, I trip myself, I can't hang on to things. I have what I call misfiring nerves, where I might itch myself there, and my back starts hurting because my nerve fires wrong. And I still get that bubble eye thing going on. And there's a lot of things that still happen. You know, I'm never going to be 100%. But, you know, and as hard as it was for me to go through what I went through, and it was hard, let me tell you, it was damn hard. I mean, I never knew I had what it took inside of me to do what I did. I mean, if you sit and you think about me laying there praying to die, coming from that and being able to sit here and tell you this story, that's a huge leap. I mean, I've had other issues. I think I'm going to cough. I've had other things happen in my life, which I'm actually going to do videos on those too. I've tried to overcome a lot of different things. Some of them I haven't been so good at. Some of them I have. And this particular thing, I may have not totally overcome it, only because your body can't always come back from it. But I found something inside of me that money couldn't buy, riches couldn't buy, nothing could buy. But being sick gave it to me, and I found that I am a really strong human being, and that when I have to, I can really, I've got what it takes, and I know that I can be okay in the end. It's not always easy to convince myself of this, but I mean, if you ask me, you know, you get a do-over. Stoner was talking about this the other day, except his do-over was you had to live the same exact life. You just got to be young again. Well, I'm going to play my do-over different. If I could do over and not have all these illnesses I've had in my life, you know, this may sound corny to you, to anybody watching this, I can tell you that I would choose the exact same life with the exact same issues, because I would not have the belief system I have, I would not have the family I have, I would not be where I am today if I hadn't gone through every single thing I have gone through. And so in the end, it's been worth it. And I believe that. I mean, I do wish that I wouldn't have stolen Jamie's childhood like I did. That was kind of, it wasn't done on purpose, I can say that. Definitely wasn't done on purpose.
I know.
Well, at least she helped you get everything.
Yeah, she helped me, because my mother certainly did not stand there and help me when I needed her the most. I mean, she could have stayed home and just watched Jamie, because I really didn't need her as badly as she thought I did while I was in that hospital room, because I was just sick and getting sicker, and oh, pity me. You know, I was pity mode then. And pretty much it took everything I had just to be sick. But, and then she could have been there for me in the, you know, the aftermath and helped me there. You know, like I said, I'll never forgive her for what she did to me there. And, you know, probably that's why I was kind of a big poo head to her when she got sick in the end too, because I couldn't forget what she had done to me, which was really not a very nice thing to do, and I probably shouldn't have done it, and really petty. But you know, there again, Jamie was right there. That's another story. We're gonna let Jamie tell that story, because I threw something onto Jamie I should have never thrown onto Jamie in that situation. And
What was that?
my mother, in the end, you know, everything that you went through with her. That was, yeah. But we're gonna go into that on another another little video. But yeah, I've been kind of a shit in my life too.
You'd want Casey here for that one too, because at the very end he was really helpful too.
Oh yeah, he was good.
Picking her up and stuff,
Yeah.
if you're gonna do that. So.
Yeah, I didn't yet have Casey. I was 30 when I ended up having Casey. So Casey got to miss all the Guillain-Barré stuff. He was quite lucky. But I can say this, you know, because maybe other Guillain-Barré or GBS survivors, or people who are going through it, or people who are related to people that are going through it, will watch this video. And you know, I would really like to hear from this group of people, because this is something I've never been able to get anybody to answer for me ever. Of those women who have had Guillain-Barré, that maybe you had a child before the Guillain-Barré, and then you got pregnant after you had the Guillain-Barré. Was the second pregnancy any different than the first pregnancy? My first one, it was like, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, and she just flew out. With Casey, it was totally different. It was also okay, let me get my words together. It was actually a really awful experience, to be honest, because my labor started, like, we're just going to pick a day of the week, Thursday, and I was in labor until like Saturday, which I know lots of women are. I mean, I'm not going to discount that. But my labor was, instead of him pushing down, he was coming up. So with every labor contraction, he was wrenching my ribs and pushing into my chest. It was very painful, and it was really hard to endure. And I hate to tell you how many times I was, sent home 3 times or 2 times from the hospital. They just wouldn't listen to me, and they wouldn't help me. They just kept saying, you're not dilated, you're not dilated. That's all I kept hearing. And when I was pregnant with Casey, I was still married to Billy at the time, but Billy's not Casey's father. Some other guy is. Anyway, when Billy found out that he could be financially responsible for Casey when I was pregnant, I guess he pretty much decided to put, because he was going to stay married to me for longer than he did, but he pretty much set everything into motion. And when everything got into motion, the doctor I had, Mr. I'm into it for the money, dropped me like that. I was like 8 months pregnant. I mean, I was like right there at the end, trying to find another doctor willing to take me, which back then in 1981 was not, no, you were 81. 1990, I caught myself. 1990 was not easy to find a doctor that was willing to take somebody that was that pregnant. And his name is Dr. Caleb Seahaw. I'm gonna spell that. It was S-I-A-W. And I do believe he was from another country. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know. Very nice man. Very nice man. He was willing to take because I was on welfare at the time, and he took the welfare coverage. And let me tell you, he finally came to the hospital, or he was at the hospital, or they called him, and he came into my room, and oh my God, he was so mad. He refused to do a C-section because he just told it like it was. You're fat. I don't want to do a C-section. So that was out. So yeah, he said that, seriously. So anyway, and he could see that the labor was totally dysfunctional, because that's what he called it, dysfunctional labor. And he sat there with me, and this is what he did. He had a gloved hand, he had his hand gloved, and he went in like you would with forceps, but he used his hand. He had it on Casey's head, and every time I had a contraction, he would pull, or maybe it was after the contraction, I'm not sure which it was. I just know that every time it was safe, he would pull him. And he did this for hours. I'm not kidding. It was probably about 4 or 5 hours. He sat with me, never leaving my side, never taking his hand off of Casey's head, and kept pulling him until he got him out of there. And Oh, and here's a little side note just for anybody who has had Guillain-Barré and is going to have and has a baby afterwards, and who was really freaked out by your body being like asleep all the time. I'm going to tell you right now, don't ever allow yourself to have a spinal block, because it gives you the same feelings. Oh my God, I went into hysteria when my body started falling asleep when I was laying there about ready to give birth. And by that time, the medicine was in there. There was nothing they could do. And I was totally hysterical when I had him because the epidural, that's what it was called. I thought that I was getting sick again, and it was a horrible, horrible, horrible thing. I would go through massive pain having a baby before I would ever allow myself to have an epidural. That's just my advice to any woman who has had Guillain-Barré and that whole sleep thing freaked you out. So anyway, he was born, and thank God everything was okay, but he was not only in dysfunctional labor, he was 6 weeks late, which is like almost unheard of. And the doctor, because he hadn't been my doctor the whole time, he didn't realize that he was even 6 weeks late. I mean, actually, in all reality, that other doctor should have been about ready to deliver him. But, you know, that other doctor was just all worried about his money and just didn't want anything to do with me. And, yeah, there was a lot of things. And then Casey, when he was born, he couldn't maintain his temperature. He couldn't suck right, so I couldn't nurse him. And he never cried. And I kid you not, he had failure to thrive. And if I had not woke him up to fed him, he'd have been dead, because he would sleep 23 hours a day. I mean, so anybody out there that had anything like this happen on a second pregnancy after having Guillain-Barré, God, I really want to hear from you. I really do, because I know that I can't be the only one out there that went through this after an incident like this. And so if you're out there, God, please say something in the comments, and I'll get in touch with you, or I'll give you my phone number or whatever. I would just love to talk to somebody else who went through what I went through. And so anyway, that was kind of a sidebar there. I'm always taking off of these little exits, aren't I? So anyway, I just wanted to kind of, there was a whole lot more that happened to me during the Guillain-Barré, but those are the highlights that I remember. I mean, Jamie wasn't young enough to remember anything. Billy, what?
Old enough.
What did I say? Young enough? Sorry, old enough to remember anything. My mother's gone. My father's gone. And maybe my ex-husband probably might remember, but we all know how, once you're an ex, that's just the way it is. You're an ex. So, and I'm not going to ask him. So, I did have a really good friend named Brenda, who I went to high school with, that came to see me a lot, and she's seen a lot of what happened to me. And maybe she could let me know if she remembers things I didn't remember, because I pretty much said everything I remembered, except for the few things I want to go into another tape on. So, basically, I want to thank Jamie for being there for me and being the kind of 3-year-old that was responsible, because most 3-year-olds aren't responsible. You know that.
I've had a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But you were responsible like an adult. I was very lucky. I mean, God put you in my hands for a reason.
Yeah,
And
you were lucky with her.
I was very lucky. And I'm also going to say something about the ex, Billy.
Are you crying again?
I'm fine.
No,
I'm gonna say. No, I'd like to say something, okay? Please.
Okay.
I'd like to say something about my ex-husband, Billy. I said earlier he was 24 years old, no more equipped to handle this than I was. But let me tell you, he stood with me through this whole thing. I mean, he wasn't the best. I wasn't the best. He wasn't the best. Neither one of us were the best people in the world. But he knew that he needed to be there. He knew his responsibility, and he stayed there. And I'll never, ever, ever be able to thank him enough for doing that for me. Because I remember sitting in the hospital when the doctor said I may never get better. And I looked Billy right in the eye, and I told Billy, I give you permission to leave me. If you want a divorce, I won't stand in your way. You can have your divorce. He said, no, I'm going to stay right here. And he did stay right there. So I know there's not a snowball's chance in hell he'll ever see this. But you know what? I thank you from the bottom of my heart, Billy, for doing that for me. Oh, God, I'm sorry. So I'm sorry that I was so emotional. It was a very emotional time in my life. As you can see, Vampy doesn't like to cry in front of people because it's, let's face it, it's like Farrah from Teen Mom OG. Ugly face. Who wants to make an ugly face in front of a camera? So, anyway, I'm going to end this here, and I'm going to ask Angel if he'll turn it off. Okay. So, thank you. I'm sorry that this was not an uplifting video, but I kind of just wanted to do it, you know, for people who are out there that may have this or had this and be suffering, to know that, you know, there are brighter days ahead, and you will get better. You may not get 100% better, but, you know, take what's been given you and learn from it. I mean, seriously, work it, learn from it, and make your life better. This is Vampyresskiss.
And Angel.
Bye. And Jamie.
Yeah,
Bye.
and Jamie. Bye.